Hi everyone, and welcome to my review and reaction and review to Outlander Season 5, Episode 3, which is called Free Will. Wow. Okay, so this was the first one that just wowed my pants off. Like, I won't even pretend otherwise. I gave this episode 10 out of 10. I'm not really like rating them, but I just mean it was like 10 out of 10 for me. I enjoyed it so much. It was so book accurate as well, which it's been the first one that has been like, there was so little variance to what happened in the book, and I was so happy about it. So that was really exciting. Man, I'm just like so flustered by it too. I always watch these like as soon as they come out on Saturday night for me, and then I try to film this the next morning after I've had time to like think about it. But wow, this was so intense. So let's see. Let's do kind of an overview, which is what I've like mostly been doing, and then we'll talk about kind of different scenes that I liked the most. There won't really, and then there'll just be a little bit where I compare with the book at the end. So the overview of this episode is that Jamie is getting back from his like kind of like scouting mission with Lieutenant Knox. Things were kind of sketchy on that trip, and Jamie is getting back and he needs to go round up a militia and hopefully get a big enough show of force that the regulators will back down, because he doesn't want to fight them. He doesn't want to have to kill people that he respects and loves, in the case of Murtaugh, but also other Scots and other not colonists at this point, but other, Americans who are just tired of how they're being treated, because he totally understands that. And it's kind of interesting in a way too, because if we think back to season 3, there were these Scots who were on the side of the British, and they were called Lowlanders, or they were Lowlanders, and we looked down on them so much because they were willing to sell out to the British. And granted, the specific Lowlander that we meet is the one who ends up cutting off Fergus's hand, so we don't have a lot of sympathy or empathy towards him. But I do think it's interesting to point out that we have seen other people in this position where they have sold out to the British because they needed to for personal reasons or for certain situations. So something to be remembered. So the way that this one plays out then is Jamie goes home and he needs to take all the men from the ridge that he can, and he needs to stop at the different places recruiting. So his tenants are obligated to help him because that's part of what they were signing up for when they joined him, as well as they need to recruit people in general because of just Jamie's position as being the commander of this. So we start off too with Claire is going to be coming with and Roger is going to be coming with. And that is really exciting to me because I felt like last time, like they made a big deal about Roger not being ready to go. And now I think it's supposed to be okay. And this is because they don't know a lot about the War of Regulation and that it wasn't a full-blown war. So they feel safe enough sending Roger, knowing that this isn't going to be a full-blown war, but there are still going to be conflicts that we're going to run into, so that'll be interesting. But that is a very small portion of the story, is them setting off. There is the beautiful scene, which I think this is the scene that Sam Heughan was talking about at Comic-Con. We'll see, where he said that him and Claire were like making love without making love. That was just such an emotional moment. And I really think that was the beginning of this. So the pre-credit part is Jamie, the pre-credit, okay, cut this out. So we get to see Jamie coming home and going to wake Claire up and saying that he's thankful to God for her. And then they just have this beautiful, where they're like speaking without speaking. And I wonder if that's that scene he meant. Because that's when they were just beginning to film, was like back then. And I could see that. because it was really beautiful. It's that part of Jamie and Claire that I love so much in the later books, where they just know what the other is thinking and they just completely accept and love one another so much. It was so beautiful. But the main bulk of this today is the Beardsley cabin, which I didn't know if this would be in this season. I mean, I knew from the previews last week that it would, but just because this was kind of a side story in the book that is very intense, it's a very good one, I just didn't know if it would be one that would get skipped in favor of, you know, bigger parts of the story we needed. But basically what happens is that Josiah Beardsley, who's been recruited to be a tenant for Jamie, he's been a little bit deceitful. Jamie needs men who are under 16, or I mean boys basically who are under 16, who are still like well enough put together that they could help protect the ridge and then hunt for them, while he has to take all the men between 16 and 60 to go be a part of his militia. And so Josiah Beardsley, however, who we saw in the last episode, has a T for thief, which means that he could be taken at any time and used for like forced labor by thief takers or sold into like kind of like a slavery type thing. Very, very dark. And he got caught stealing, I think they said it was like cheese or something. So this really little thing, it reminds me of like Valjean in Les Mis, where like he gets in trouble for this like small thing and it like can completely ruin his life basically. So we find out that Josiah has a twin named Kezia who has been still at home with their owner, who they're basically slaves. When their parents died when they were 2 years old, the ship captain on their boat sold them into indentured servitude for 30 years to Aaron Beardsley. And so Jamie is willing to buy both of their indentured papers, which means you're like taking it over, and will pay him off whatever he paid for them, so that he can have both of them. Also, Kezia is deaf because of repeated beatings. He has ruptured eardrums, which means he has been repeatedly hit in the head and he cannot hear. And Claire is like so horrified at this that she'd seen this done to this boy. And Josiah has tried to do his best to take care of Kezia. And so Josiah explains where they live at, that they've been forced to stay in the barn, that they've been like starved basically. And so Jamie and Claire send Roger on ahead with the men to continue recruiting people, and they're going to make a side trip to go get these indenture papers. Well, they walk into a horror show, and I have to give so many props to the show, guys. This is one of the creepiest episodes of Outlander I've ever watched. I've never felt so ominous outside of the super dark episodes, but those aren't necessarily creepy the way this was. Like, think of Wentworth Prison or To Ransom a Man's Soul or Faith, which are horrible and gut-wrenching, but they aren't creepy. Like, think a little bit of The Star Chamber. That was creepy, but it was flashy, and it's the king doing it, and so it doesn't have the same, like, gritty, what the hell are we walking into? And I was so nervous. I don't really like horror. I knew it wasn't going to be horror, but I was like, how far are we going to go with this? Because, like, the beginning of last episode was someone getting tarred and feathered, and Bonnet was, like, cutting someone's nose off, and I was like, I know what's waiting in this cabin. I'm scared. So we end up getting to the Beardsley house, and we meet Fanny Beardsley. And she does not want to let them in, but then she agrees to help them find the papers. And the house smells horrible, and Claire is immediately suspicious. Fanny says her husband died a couple months ago, and it's just been her, but like Josiah hasn't mentioned this. But it sounds like neither Kezia or Josiah have been in the house. They've just been living in that barn. Well, Kezia has. Josiah's been working with Jamie. And Claire ends up finding Aaron Beardsley, and he is stuck upstairs. He has been lying in his own filth. He had a stroke. He cannot move or talk, and Fanny has been torturing him, which Gross. But as things get unveiled, you realize that he has killed 4 wives before Fanny. He's murdered them all because they couldn't give him a baby. And Fanny herself is pregnant, and through some different things, she ends up having the baby there, and it's actually a half black baby. And she's really happy about this because, number one, it basically means that, like, Aaron couldn't have kids if he had 5 wives and none of them could give him a baby. I think that's his fault. And she had met a man and the baby was his. But the way that everything happened to Aaron is that he was beating her and he had a stroke and fell down. And she left him there, and she has been being kind of haunted by the ghosts of the wives he previously killed, specifically one of them. And that, I think you get that just like she has PTSD and she was in shock. And then with the voices she was hearing, she was torturing Aaron. And so all of it seems like she's this horrible person and we don't know what to do with her. But the more info we find out, we realize that this woman has suffered a great trauma. But this puts us all in a pickle because Jamie needs those papers and he needs to get back to his company, and he doesn't have time to deal with this. So they spend the night there. The next day, Fanny has left. She found the papers, left them by the baby, and is trusting them to take care of the baby. Whether that means for Jamie and Claire to keep this baby or to find someone to care for her, we don't know. And then Claire doesn't know what they can do for Aaron because she would have to amputate his foot. He has horrible bed sores. He's had maggots crawling in his wounds, which from what Claire says, is actually a good thing because it keeps them from being infected. And certain kind of maggots only eat dead flesh. Sorry, I know too much from reading Outlander books. This is something she talks about all the time and definitely uses maggots in different times. And so because Claire's a doctor, she says she can't end his suffering, but they don't owe him anything. So, basically if Jamie would order her to leave, she would do that. Or else send Jamie on his way and wait for someone to come take care of him. But Jamie says, Claire, I want you to wait outside. I'm going to go talk to him. Because he can blink to give answers to questions. And Claire's like, Jamie, and he's like, Claire, I would do it for a dog. Should I do less for this man? Which, man, the next 4 minutes of Sam's acting just, I want to cuss with awe and agony, and it's exactly the feeling you get from the book. And just to get to see him have some of these scenes this season is just, I forgive so many of the things that frustrate me to have more of these scenes with Jamie Fraser being this kind of human. I love it so much. So he goes back in and he talks to Aaron and he says, my wife would have to cut off your foot. You won't ever move or talk again. Do you understand? And he indicates yes. And he's like, would you have me take your life? And he says, yes. And he's like, from what I've heard, you were a horrible man. I'd hate to send a man to hell. Would you pray for your soul? Of course Jamie Fraser would ask that. Holy crap, it's so powerful and just stunning. But Aaron says no. And so Jamie says, well, then the Lord have mercy on us both. And you hear the shot ring out. And he goes back out to Claire. And Claire is she's accepting of it because she understands that what he did was best. Her oath as a doctor would have forbidden her from doing it, but she understands why he did it. And then Jamie looks at Claire and he says he wonders about his father because his father had a stroke and died when he saw Jamie being beaten way back when. And so Jamie thought that a stroke always killed you. Not realizing that back then, a stroke and a heart attack and some other things that happened to you, they were all kind of balled together, and Brian Fraser probably had more of like a heart attack and a stroke and those things, and he did die immediately from them. But Jamie worries that maybe someone had to put his father down like that and just wouldn't tell him. And Claire assures him, like, your sister would have told you. She wouldn't lie about that to you. And then Jamie looks at Claire and he asks her to make the oath. And this is an oath that makes me, I mean, it's a horrible thing that will happen later on, but it makes me very excited that they're going to do one of my favorite storylines of the book. Because the oath he asks Claire to make is that if I'm ever this close to death and I won't be able to be myself again, I'm paraphrasing, promise me you will do for me what I did for him. And not as a physician, but as a wife, Claire promises. And that's a heavy thing to promise, and that's a Chekhov's gun that is firmly planted on the table now. And we'll see where that goes. All right. So that is the main overview. I really wanted to talk through this one because I feel like they did such a good job. So some book things that I want to compare it to. Like things that were well and not well. I love that Claire and Roger both came with. Really in the book though, Jamie was always expecting Claire to come with because that is a deal they made each other pretty early on, that she would always come with on these. So like I said, that was something in the last one that I was so angry about, is because both her and Roger didn't come with. And so I was very happy that they're both coming with. However, I'm still missing the conversation between Roger and Jamie. Like, I want them to talk, and I want Jamie to be more accepting of him as a son. And I know that the show is trying to make him earn that, but I really like more in the book where Jamie Fraser is the thing of like, give someone responsibility and they'll rise to it, instead of having them rise to the responsibility. And so, instead of having them earn it first. And specifically with Roger, that's something that Jamie does, is Roger's part of his family. He immediately treats him as one. It's only through some events they go through together that Roger fully earns it and they have a deeper relationship. But Jamie right away is like, you are the first man beside me. Always. And I hope we finally get to see that. A couple other things. They definitely made Fanny much more sympathetic. She is sympathetic in the book, but I really liked how I was so nervous when it started and just how they worked in everything. And every time I thought they would skip a part of it, they made it happen. It was so book accurate, guys. And just like the ache that it made me feel was so realistic. I won't talk too much about the baby girl that they're left with, because definitely in the scenes they show, they are going to continue being pretty book accurate in the next episode from what I can see. So I'm very excited about that, about how that situation gets handled with that baby girl. Very interested. We also finally are bringing up Bonnet. Jamie mentions to Claire that he knows he's still alive, but doesn't know, thinks Brianna doesn't know, but we know that Brianna knows just from what she overheard at her wedding. So there's foreshadowing for that. I can't think of anything else to say. I just had some things I was gushing over when it was happening, was just the acting was amazing. I felt like I could smell the room in this one. They didn't go overly gruesome with Aaron. A little bit, yes, it's pretty gross what we're seeing, but it wasn't overly horrifying or something that I couldn't handle or anything. So I really liked that they showed how horrifying it was, and that they had Jamie give mercy to this man who had given no one else mercy. And I was even feeling for this guy, because he just looks horrible and so pitiful, and is no way for a human to live, no matter how much we think they deserve it. And wow, it was painful to see. And yeah, they did such a good job in this. So I'm very excited for the next episode. It looks like it looks like we've quickly ramped up into good stuff, which is awesome because I feel like sometimes in these seasons, it's taken a while to get to like prime stuff. And this was almost like a mini horror movie. It was like a mini suspense story right in the middle. And I really, really liked that. And I remember that being talked about in one of the interviews I saw, that there would be a lot of these like different people would be paired up, and then there would be like an episode, and it just so happens that like this isn't a different couple for us, it's Jamie and Claire. But how many like episodes do we get where it's just them anymore? You know, there's always so much going on. And so I really liked seeing how well they work together, like Jamie just stepping up to help her without questioning it, helping with like the baby being born, just all those things. I loved it so much. So all right, well, this has been kind of my review, and it turned out to be a gush for episode 3 of Outlander. I have a whole Outlander playlist that you can check out on my page. Make sure you subscribe for more content like this. I put up new videos 3 to 4 times a week, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!